Terrible Dactyl, and welcome to another exciting episode of Jurassic Plastic. As you can see, we are going to be doing something a little bit differently today because I just got in a whole shipment of new Safari LTD models. I'm catching up on a few that I never had before that I was interested in and that I want to be reviewing for this show. And while I was online picking out some of these models, I really couldn't pass this guy up. This is the brand new Safari LTD Bigfoot from their Mythic Realms line. To me, and I think to a lot of people, cryptozoology and paleontology often seem to go together. I'm not quite sure why that is. I guess it probably has to do with, in a way, prehistoric animals are sort of like mystery animals. We're going by limited amount of clues and evidence and things like that and trying to piece things together. It just so happens that there's a lot less actual evidence that modern day mystery animals like this actually exist, but it's still really interesting to me. And a lot of people like Darren Naish, who wrote this awesome book here, Hunting Monsters, on cryptozoology, including Bigfoot and a lot of other crypto topics, who is a paleontologist and who is rightfully highly skeptical of a lot of the stories, but points out that, a lot of the information, a lot of the details that you can find out there, a lot of the people involved in this, it's pretty interesting. It's a very fascinating subject to study. And while I am not actually a believer in Bigfoot or the Loch Ness Monster or anything like that, they're very interesting to me, and I do have a sort of a nostalgic soft spot when I see a model like this. So, without further ado, let's review the brand new Safari LTD Bigfoot. Let's crack this guy open here. Set him free from his icy prison. And there he is. Stands well enough. And you can see that he is intentionally sculpted in a very similar pose to the classic Bigfoot film, Patterson-Gimlin film, which you can see the still from here on the cover of the book. And he's in that kind of walking away, feet pointed away, while turning to look at the viewer. Now, I keep saying he. This does appear to be a male Bigfoot or Sasquatch. And one noticeable detail that is immediately absent, if this was going to be a true to myth reconstruction of the Patterson film, is in that one, it is a female, and you can probably understand why Safari would have shied away from making this one a little bit more anatomically true to the source material. They aren't always necessarily shy about that kind of thing. I don't think I have to necessarily flip over my Safari Daeodon here to illustrate what I mean, but on a much more anthropomorphic character like this, it probably was a smart decision, considering that this is primarily a toy that's going to be played with by kids and sold in toy stores and things like that. So they don't want to get too many of those details quite accurate. But in terms of the details that they do have on here, this is a very nicely sculpted model. You can see it's got this nice shaggy fur detail here all across the body, and the fur on the legs is kind of in little clumps, which I like. It kind of adds that matted appearance to it, like maybe it hasn't quite taken a bath in a little while. You can almost smell this guy coming from a mile away. And wow, look at the detail on the hand here. This almost looks like the hand of a great ape, like a gorilla, with the way that there's hair on the top of the hand here kind of grading into this almost gorilla looking palm with these very nicely sculpted lines in the hand, and the musculature really does show through, especially on the back here, especially around the chest. It's not quite as defined as on the new Safari Yeti that they just revealed at San Diego Comic-Con, which is probably good. You know, I'm not a massive fan of that new Yeti. I think it looks a little bit too much like a superhero type character, which I guess is appropriate considering that it was revealed at Comic-Con, right? It doesn't quite look as naturalistic as this does. This looks like it would fit right in with a wild safari collection of animals, although the scale is a little large compared to a lot of the wild safari animal models. But as a display, if you were somebody who's just interested in cryptozoology and wanted to have one of these things for your desk, wanted to have, you know, just something cool to indicate your love of mysterious creatures, this makes a really nice display piece. Now, we can't talk about Bigfoot without talking about these big feet. Take a look at these bad boys. The detail on those feet is crazy. It looks a little bit almost bony here on the top. You can see the bones of the feet separately for each toe. Let me see if I can focus that a little bit better for you there. The nails are separately sculpted, and I'm assuming that the way that these toes are spread apart is accurate to some of the Bigfoot footprints that you can see in books like this. I'm having a little trouble focusing this close. There's the date stamp. One thing I have to say I'm a little bit disappointed with the lack of detail on the bottom of the feet here. I feel like in some of the Safari LTD models, they do sculpt detail onto the bottom of the feet. I'm thinking specifically of my Safari Amebelodon here, where you can see it's got little wrinkles and things on the bottom of the feet. My Safari Wintertherium has wonderful texturing. You can see here on the bottom of those foot pads. And on this Bigfoot, it's really just smooth. Now, I understand on a bipedal figure, stability is probably going to be an issue if you were going to go in there and actually sculpt the detail on the bottom, you know. But wouldn't it have been cool if they could give it some of the texturing and the creases just like they did on the inside of these palms? If they could have done that on the bottom of the feet and gotten them to match some of the Sasquatch footprints that have been supposedly found, I think that would have been the icing on the cake for this figure. The face is really nice, though. He's got a really interesting expression on his face. Kind of calm, almost dignified. He almost reminds me of the Bigfoot in Harry and the Hendersons, just a little bit, not quite as exaggerated, obviously. And it's a little hard to see his eyes in here. Not very much detail on the eyes. I don't think they are even separately painted. Now, obviously, the paint job for a figure like Bigfoot is not going to be anything too complicated. Bigfoot is best known from these blurry photos, these blurry films, where they always look basically just flat, dark brown or black all over. There's not too much you can do to get creative with a Bigfoot unless you deviate significantly from the source material. So on the one hand, I appreciate the fact that they didn't give in to that temptation. Obviously, looking at the new Yeti, there probably was, at least somebody must have had the idea like, hey, let's jazz this guy up a little bit. It really is just a plain dark brown base plastic with a little bit of a lighter brown wash over it, which does a nice job of bringing out the details and the highlights on the fur. But that's really it. I don't know what else they could have done to jazz it up too much without making it seem too outlandish. Anything they did, I'd probably be criticizing them for right now. So it would be hypocritical of me to say that, they should have given it red eyes. Although that is one thing that I do remember from when I was a kid interested in cryptozoology, stories of Sasquatch with glowing red eyes. I remember sometimes when I was a kid, my parents driving me home from somewhere late at night through the woods, and I'd be looking out into those dark woods, a little scared, trying to see if I could notice the glowing red eyes of Bigfoot. Sometimes I thought I could really see them. It would have been kind of cool. Although, this is actually a pretty affordable model. I can't remember exactly how much it is. I think $10 or $11. I wouldn't mind going in there with a little paintbrush and maybe customizing these a little. This is the tag that came with the model. And let's see if it has any additional info in here. There we go. Bigfoot. Safari LTD, ages 3+. And when we open it up, there's Safaripedia. I guess that's what they do now, right? They direct you to the website to get more info. I do kind of miss the days when the tag would be, as Safari used to say, a little diploma, little info cards, the kind of things that came with the old Carnegie Collection models. Oh, here we go. There is a little bit of information on here. Sightings. Let me focus that. Sightings of Bigfoot occur all over the U.S., but about 30% come from the Pacific Northwest. Not too much info. It'd be nice if they gave you a little bit of, height, weight, fun facts, bare minimum. That's all right. Nobody's getting this for the tag. Well, there you have it. I actually really like this model. I think I'm going to recommend this one. Anybody who is interested in cryptozoology, this makes a really nice little display piece. Here is your 2019 Safari Limited Bigfoot. And I look forward to presenting more reviews of new, or at least newer, Safari product here on Jurassic Plastic in the future, as well as diving back into some of those old vintage Carnegie models. So make sure you hit that subscribe button and get notified for all of our future uploads. Thanks for watching.